Hello, everyone. Welcome to our session today, Emerging Global Trends in the E-commerce Space. So today, our special guest who has joined us live is Kerem Siral. He is the founder and CEO at aradolo.com, an e-commerce that is based on organic and healthy products and has raised around $3 million in seed capital up till now. So Kerem has curated a high growth e-commerce revenue model and is also working on exciting new possibilities. So delighted to have you today, Kerem. Can you please share a bit about yourself and why did you join the e-commerce space back in 2013 when e-commerce was not as much of a hype as it is now?
First of all, thank you, Aisha, for hosting me. I'm glad that I could be part of your show. I'm watching it from Istanbul, and I'm really liking what you are doing, and like the quality of the people that you host. So I would like to think that, I'm at that caliber. And so to talk a little bit about myself, I'm born and raised in Istanbul. And had my education mostly here until my college years, and then I went to the U.S. To get my BA degree on policy, sociology, and economics. And at that moment, I wanted to do a little bit internship. And while I was interning, I got to learn that, there are opportunities that lies within the global economy. And the most important thing I have seen was e-commerce. But, at that moment, there were a lot of big retailers, big e-commerce retailers such as Amazon. So, I didn't want to do anything about being too wide and being too big, because I think that part was already fulfilled in the world. So I began to look at niche markets. And the most important thing that I have seen, looking at my country's background and what the country has in strength, I have seen that organic and natural food and skincare is quite a big deal in Turkey. The Turkey state in general have a good advantage on producing these products, but the country and the people just do not know how to market them. So I was looking I looked at both of the opportunities, and then I decided to bring them together, and I decided to establish aradolo.com, which is an e-commerce company that focuses on organic and natural food and skincare mostly. And so the most important part was back then to seize the opportunity, but actually to bring two opportunities together so that I could have more wind behind my back, so to speak. And since then we have seen a huge growth, and I think the most important thing that I have done, the reason why the company succeeded, because I also have other companies that didn't succeed and that failed, and I shut them down. Is because I think we picked two right industries. One was e-commerce, and the other one was organic and natural food and skincare. And I think, back then, even though there were a lot of e-commerce companies, I focused on the niche market, and so I think that was the reason why.
From the first platform that was focused on organic in Turkey at that time, or was that space already established and there were players in the field already?
There were players already who were doing that, just focus on that, but it was not their primary focus.
Okay.
So one of them was, was actually a branch of a very, very large food delivery in Turkey, company in Turkey, and they weren't so much focused on that. And the other one was the first mover, actually, who was established in 2008, but the owners were not too focused on it. My primary focus was always Aradolo, and so maybe that was the reason why it like all of them went out of the game, so they are not around anymore. But I
Okay.
think the reason why Anadolu stayed and survived and succeed, because I think I cared about it and my team cared about it, and yeah, and we
So
we,
that
we
means
basically
basically, when the founder or the CEO is like caring about the purpose of the company and is also creating that culture where everyone else is inspired to care about each and everything. I think that's also one of the key ingredients for sustainability of any business organization. So,
exactly.
going forward, as an entrepreneur, as a startup who's venturing into a niche space, what were the challenges that you faced and how did you go about addressing them?
I think the most important. That's a great question. I think, when you first start, I started really early. So I was only 21 years old when I started Anadolu. So, I mean, when you are 21 years old, you really do not know what you are doing. And so, about life and also about this company that you have, I think the most important thing that I have done, I picked a domain that I really, really care about. So this is my lifestyle. This has been my lifestyle since the age of 18. So I picked something that I really care about and that I really think that it will help people. And if I didn't believe in it, I wouldn't be able to stick with the idea, because it's a very hard road. So I think that was the thing that made me relentless, so to speak. Because if I were not that, there are just so many causes for you to give up. And I think that was the biggest decision I made. I basically focused on something that I truly care about, and that I know that if it is done well, if I can make healthy living accessible to people, not even there's a huge market, but not even even if I can do that for small amount of people comparatively, I knew that I was going to take so much joy out of it, because I think health is our biggest wealth. So that was I think that's the reason. That's what I did right. I feel like. Um,
And what, in terms of challenges, so for example, gaining all of that seed capital that you raise, it's very hard to convince venture capitalists of your business proposition. So, what
mhm.
were the challenges that you faced over there, and how did you deal with them?
So what I did was the biggest challenge was actually going back to the first point. In Turkey, maybe it's the same case in Pakistan. Being a young person is your disadvantage. People care about age and experience in our country, which has some good points, but then it also leave out the possibilities that could actually create high growth companies, because there's a really different world out there, which we have been seeing a lot with this COVID-19 situation. So the biggest thing was that actually the biggest challenge was to establish credibility. And now what I did was, I started out with friends and family, mostly family. But it was really hard to convince my family to gather the money I want. So I asked a small amount, and I tried to show myself that I could move the needle forward. And if you do that for 15, 20 times or so, and if you can show results, then people begin to believe in you. So I think it's important to think big and dream big, but I think it's important to just start. And that's how I did it. I asked for minimal capital, and then I just started. And I think every 4 months or so, I went back to my family and I showed them the results, and I told them that I need more capital. And after a while, they begin to believe in it more, and then I begin to focus on different business models because it's also important to make the company sustainable as well. But of course, like it's not very easy to gather capital even from your own family because I mean I think capital is something very sensitive. So like people people need to believe in you, and like I was lucky to have people believe in me, and but yeah. So
But
I
at the
will say
same
that
time, what you also did was that you did chunking. So instead of just gathering a lot of capital at the same time and then
exactly,
deciding what you do, you took a small portion of that capital and then you showed your results that this is how well I
exactly,
can manage this amount of money and these are the results that I can bring with it. And that actually created evidence that yes, you could be trusted with more capital as well. And this is a very
exactly.
effective technique to build credibility to so
Hmm.
instead of attacking the cake at once, just one slice at a time, I feel.
Exactly. I think that was exactly. So because I mean, if and nobody gives money to ideas anymore. Like I think if somebody gives money to an idea, they must trust you super well. Which is, I mean, that's not the case. Everybody looks at the results and they want to see harsh realities, like if this business model is working or not. And when they see that, then they actually they begin to pour more money in. And I think and like it's important to get that business model going, which takes it mostly a year or two, and then and after that, there is no need to exaggerate the results. There is no need to show profit or show more than it is necessary. After you prove the business model, I think the most important thing is you go to the right type of investors. You go to that high growth, innovative kind of investor, or if you want to more focus on profit, you go to that conventional businessman, businesswoman. Like I think it's important after you prove the business model, it's just important to pick the right type of investor. And there are just so many. Like you could go for small investors, you could go for institutional capital, you could go for state funding. Like you could do so many things. But I think it's important, just like everything in our daily lives, just like every relationship that we have. I think it's important to click together, be transparent about your goals, and just see if it is a match. If it is not a match, then I think no need to be sad or depressed, or no need to be no need to push it. Like if so, I think it's important to
The click needs to be
remind
there
yourself.
basically.
Yeah.
So that's important. Now, in COVID-19, we have seen that e-commerce has taken quite a leap. So can you share some examples of what some of the largest e-commerce giants are doing at present, and new entrants who are coming into the market, and how they're adapting to this new marketplace in pandemic times?
Yeah. So I think the most important thing that happened during this pandemic is definitely like people knew that this time was going to come. People knew that everybody was going to get accustomed to digital world. But even me, I was expecting 2030s. I think it just basically made it happen just so quickly, and that's the reason why that's the reason why it was such an intense moment, because suddenly all that digitalization happened just in a few months. So I think people, especially e-commerce companies who supply staples, basically toilet paper, or things that we need in our day-to-day lives, or for our households, they have seen a huge growth. Just to give an example, Amazon is an example in the US. I mean, they have, even though many businesses stopped. Amazon actually has seen a huge growth in their traffic. In Turkey, there are very similar retail companies, e-commerce retail companies that have seen the same growth. And for us, we have seen. I started to invest again starting the beginning of this year on the company. So we have been seeing growth regardless of COVID. But I think what we have seen was in April, we have seen 20% increase in our revenue because people began to stock all these products. But the most important thing I have seen personally is people do not question e-commerce anymore. They know that it's very significant, which that was not the case even when I was starting, 2013. It has been approximately 20 years since e-commerce has established in 2013. But people were still asking me if e-commerce is a real thing or if I can make money out of it. And now nobody questions it, which is very interesting how life works, because the numbers are telling that it's a very stable and very opportunistic industry, but nobody cared about it. But when COVID-19 happened, people do not question the significance of e-commerce anymore. And the second thing that happened for my own company is that nobody questions about the necessity of health anymore. People are actually willing to pay that 15-20% premium over the conventional product, knowing that they're actually getting a better deal out of it in terms of health and being it organic or natural. So I think that's a big deal for us, because we are going to see that in our numbers in mid to long term, because people care about health, and I think health became their first priority.
What about the way people interact with e-commerce? So, for example, let's say an e-commerce platform is not that organized. The website is a bit messy. It's difficult to navigate through it. The payment options are not that easy to navigate through. So, will the customer in the pandemic world still be willing to experience an average experience on the e-commerce website, or they would just walk away and hop onto something else?
So actually, that's an interesting question, which also we are talking about it right now with our team, and we are changing our UI UX. That it's really up to the customer and the culture. Something like Amazon works really well when you want to sell staple goods, when you want to sell household necessities. But it's not so good when you want to sell something special, something that needs to be talked about. Maybe a more of a niche e-commerce company would be better to buy that product. So if you are talking to masses, it just makes a lot of sense that it's messy. Amazon is it looks like you are writing a rocket ship code or something, which I'm used to it. I have been using it for God knows how many years now. But but I think it's the good format for masses, for masses. But for a company like ours, I think it must be simplified because we sell less products than Amazon does. We sell 20,000 products, and that 20,000 products are specially curated. So we want to tell the story, and right now we are actually changing our UI UX to which is user experience, which is just to give it in easy terms. It's just how the website looks. So we are trying to make the front, the facade, the front end of the website look a lot easier for the customer to move around. But it really depends on the person and the culture. so for instance, something like Amazon is not working really well in Turkey. But something like another company in Turkey works super well, but I know that it's not going to work well in the US. Um,
Because I remember in Turkey, hepsiburada.com was our go-to site for a lot of e-commerce retail. But
yeah.
yes, the trend towards shopping from Amazon was fairly low. Even
Mm.
eBay was not something that we conventionally went to. So why was that so? What's the reason behind this?
Turkey is a very local country. Just to give an example from another industry, um, Hollywood is actually, which is something which is a very interesting fact, by the way. Hollywood apparently cannot surpass two countries compared to their local produced movies, and one of them is Turkey. So Turkey, I mean, this actually gives the example that Turkey is a very local country. It has its own culture. It has its own dynamics, so to speak, and people take it very seriously. They want to be modern, but they also want to be Turkish at the same time. So companies who do that really well succeed in Turkey, and like the names that you talked about, like they have actually succeeded. One of them is a very local company owned by a local family here, and so I think that is so important. If a foreign company wants to come to Turkey, they wanna act Turkish. They need to act Turkish, not just want to, but they need to act Turkish to succeed. And there are a lot of failures that shows it again and again, which is I think gotta go with the culture, which is I think it eats strategy day and night.
So, going forward, what is the future you see for e-commerce globally, and what are your plans for aradolo.com?
I think e-commerce is going to increase its foothold. I think the big e-commerce retailers are going to get even bigger, such as Amazon. But I think there is still a lot of chance to basically create niche markets. So I still see opportunity, the same opportunity that I have seen in 2013, and so that's what I want to keep doing with Aradolu. I want to keep focusing on innovating food, bringing basically innovative, healthy food that brings people to their better selves through e-commerce, and so that's what I want to do with Aradolu as well. We are bringing new products every day to our e-commerce. We have different products now, like such as we are bringing gluten-free Turkish delight, and like innovative chips made by chickpeas. Things that people love to have, but they don't want to feel guilty about it. So we are actually focusing on that. So because we want to show people that living a healthy life could also be sexy and alluring, like living an unhealthy fast life. So the product side is
E-commerce in general, do you see any new trends coming up which are not currently in place, or which are too negligible or too small that we're ignoring them perhaps? Anything new, anything different which you see coming up in the future in e-commerce?
so e-commerce. I think for e-commerce, I think I could say that there will be more companies focused on specific product portfolios. Other than that, I think it's interesting to look at different hardware technologies. I think maybe what smartwatches could be a thing. Maybe I mean, I think VR could be a thing if it could succeed. But I think there is still a lot of time, maybe 10 to 15 years to talk about these. But I think the e-commerce companies will get better at presenting their products, which
Okay.
is also a big deal because just think about it. Like electric cars have been around for many years, but the reason why it has been picking up last 10 years or so, because they made electric cars quite alluring. And so I think that's what's going to happen with e-commerce as well. But of course, like the most important trend has already been happening, that is mobile. I think e-commerce is have been going on mobile, and I think that will increase.
Yes. And I feel that's a very important trend because most of the retailers have been focusing a lot of their efforts on the in-store experience. So, like
Mhm.
having shopper analytics dashboards in place and optimizing the in-store layout design. But going forward now, while in-store may still be there in the future, I hope so they are, but again people would prefer to shop from e-commerce platforms rather than from in-store if the stakes of going in-store are too high. So that means
Mm.
that we need to also start paying more attention towards, let's say, how our mobile layouts are designed for e-commerce websites, or how our e-commerce websites are like designed in general, and how seamless or how convenient we make it for our end customers to shop from our retailer. Because
Yeah,
honestly speaking, browser tabs these days are just like taxi cabs.
yeah.
You switch so quickly. If you just can't get hold of one, you just switch to the other one very quickly.
Exactly, and also the most important thing, Aisha, is definitely the most. I mean, what's happening with e-commerce is that so I mean people are getting more focused on the product portfolio, and that is super significant because retail stores are not going away. They are going to stay, because just think about it. Even in the US, or even I mean, I think the UK has a little bit more percentage. Even in the US or in other parts of the world that have e-commerce as a normal day-to-day thing, um, it's only 10 to 15% of the whole total retail volume, which is very small. So which means that every 10 products, out of every 10 products, only 10 to 15 of them are sold online, which means that there is still 80 to 85 products being sold at a retail store. So retail is not going anywhere. But if you have a specific product portfolio, and if you are really well known about it, then if you can have this hybrid model between e-commerce and retail store, then I think that you will succeed. I mean, whatever success means in your own terms. Is it revenue? Is it EBITDA? Whatever that is. So I think that's important to actually remember that retail is not going anywhere. I think it will be linked to the digital world a lot faster now, because I
But
mean,
I think the frequency is going to change. So it also depends on the product. So if it's something which we would like to shop because we want to try it out, like clothes, for example, then I think they will still have a significant amount of in-store customers coming in. But if it's
mhm,
something as basic as tea or bread, something that you don't need to try out in advance, then probably customers are likely to shift to e-commerce platforms to get those rather
yeah,
than actually going to the store to buy them. If
yeah,
they don't see the need for comparison and the brand loyalty to the existing product categories like already there.
definitely, and something if they are used to. That's the biggest dilemma. That's the biggest challenge for an e-commerce company, by the way, to make the customer um, buy that first product, because it's just so hard to tell them um, basically over a digital screen. And so when they do that, and if they like the product, then they come back and again. Um, so it's always important to keep that cohort always in mind, because If they are not coming back, that means that there is something that they didn't enjoy.
Indeed, that's very true. So, thank you so much for your time, Kerem.
Thank
As
you.
discussed, we have kept it brief and to the point because I believe there's an information overload out there. So, it's important to deliver value within a short time span rather than dragging on for too long. So, thank you so much
I,
for your contribution. And for whoever was listening, I hope this added value in one way or the other. So, with that, we'll say goodbye. So, thank you, everyone.
thank you, Asha.
Thank you.